So without wasting any more time, ladies and gentlemen, we are now starting with the second session of Track 1, Seeding Innovations in Farm Sector. And for this session, we are ready to welcome on stage Mr. Hemendra Mathur, Venture Partner, Bharat Innovation Fund and co-founder Think Ag. Also joining us for this session will be Dr. Dinesh Chauhan, Vice President, Projects and Partnerships, Dehat. Also joining us for this session will be Mr. Nitin Puri, founder, Kisan Se. We also warmly welcome in this session Mr. Vivek Pandey, Chief Technology Officer and co-founder EcoZen. We shall also be hearing from Mr. Shubhendu Das, Vice President and Lead Farm Sector Access Development Services. So ladies and gentlemen, we are all set to start the second session of Track 1, Seeding Innovations in Farm Sector. I now hand it over to the esteemed moderator to take it forward.
Good afternoon and very warm welcome to this session on seeding farm innovations. I'm very fortunate to have very experienced people on the panel. Three people representing the startup ecosystem and one, I would say, ecosystem enabler. Dinesh has worked extensively in the sector with multiple organizations, an expert on food and agri. Nitin, my ex-colleague from Yes Bank, and again has worked in the sector for a long period of time, and now an entrepreneur himself, building Kisan Se, very interesting model. Vivek from EcoZen, one of the few hardware startups in the agri ecosystem, doing phenomenal job in building solar-powered cold room solutions, solar-powered irrigation pumps, and last but not the least, Shubhendu from Access. Needs no introduction. So we can get started. Let me just set the context for this discussion. When we talk about farm innovations, of course, it's been happening for a long period of time. I would say started with Green Revolution, then White Revolution, and multiple government schemes, the focus on horticulture, oilseed, pulses. But if you look at the startup-led agri-tech innovations, startup-led sort of new business models, they actually started somewhere in 2010-11, and as we speak, the ecosystem is already 15 years old, about 3,000 plus startups, over $3 billion of venture capital funding, significant interest from corporates to partner with startups, Government of India, state governments becoming very, very important player in the agri-tech ecosystem, supporting a lot of these agri-tech solution to sort of take it to the farmers. And of course, the multilaterals, the foundations, sort of dozens of incubators playing a very important role in building this ecosystem. And of course, the grassroots organizations like Access. I think that's how the ecosystem is developing. Of course, the question is, how has it impacted the farmers? What is the situation on the ground? In India, we are seeing funding winter across sectors, not just agri-tech. How is it impacting the startup ecosystem? How it's going to pan out? And what it needs to scale these innovations? There's an estimate that about 20-25 million farmers have access to some agri-tech solution. And in India alone, we have 150 million farmers. And I also believe the solution that we're developing in India is very relevant to many other economies which are dominated by smallholder farmers. And worldwide, there are almost 500 million smallholder farmers. So in fact, what we are developing in India is very relevant to the market like Southeast Asia, South Asia, African markets in Latin America. So I'm very optimistic that we are essentially building for the globe in some ways, solving for food security, solving for sustainability, solving for climate challenges. I think more than the numbers, I am really enthused with the quality of entrepreneurs which are getting into the sector, and we have a fair representation of that demographic dividend that we have in India on this stage. So let me pause here and sort of get into the panel. Dinesh, maybe I can start with you. Dinesh works with Dehat, but before Dehat also has worked with multiple startups and organization, food and agri ecosystem. Dinesh, the big elephant in the room, how these innovations are impacting smallholder farmers. Small farmers in a remote village owning half acre, 1 acre, 2 acre of land. Are these innovations reaching out to him and how it is impacting them?
No, thank you, Hemendraji, and very good afternoon to all of you. So coming back to your question, like how these innovations are impacting small and marginal farmers. If you talk about my experience working in the agri value chain for last almost 25 years, what I see currently the ecosystem of agtech. I remember it like some 20 years back when we were working with small and marginal farmers that time also. So probably a lot of these models came up during those in that period as well, right? But what happened, what we saw in that period and what is the difference now is that the reach of and access to last mile connectivity and to how to reach those technologies to the farmer or how to have the access of those data was difficult, right? Because digitization didn't happen at that point of time. So now what we see in last 10 years or so, this digitization has really helped in reaching to the last mile connectivity, where we are actually able to have the visibility of data across the value chain. We can actually transmit the information to the farmers in much more effective manner, and still we can monitor also. Maybe later on I will explain that in detail as well. And there has been impact at the ground level. If we talk about Dehat as an organization, what we have been doing for last 11 years or so, and especially in the last 3 years, what we have seen that we have reached out to more than 20 lakh farmers across almost 160 plus districts and through more than 12,000 Dehat centers. And also we have been working a lot with FPOs as well. So these are two things which I will be discussing in detail. So yes, we have been able to take the innovation to the last mile smallholder farmer, but still it is a long way to go, I would say that.
Great. No, that's all right. We made a start, and of course, I'm sure it's a matter of time when a lot of these solutions reach to sort of millions of farmers in India and across the world. Nitin, coming to you. Of course, you've seen the sector from a banker's lens, from a consultant lens, and now as an entrepreneur. Uh, I think one of the biggest challenge for farmers has been market connect, right? 95% or 99% of the farmers end up selling in the nearest mandi at the lowest prices at the time of harvest, right? How do we institutionalize market linkages? How do we make it more productive for farmers? How do we help them do better price discovery, sell products as close to the consumer as he or she can? And of course, Kisan Se is a great model. Of course, you can share what you're doing at Kisan Se. But in general, how do we institutionalize market linkages for smallholder farmers?
Thanks so much. I think so. One of the biggest problems for farmers indeed is marketing. And of course, as you said, I've been in the industry. I used to work with companies like ITC and other companies that were consumer facing, market facing. I've been on the other side of the table as advisor, banker. What I realized personally and what we realized as Kisan Se when we were in the formative stages was marketing is indeed a problem. And within marketing, the fundamental issue is that farmer gets only 30% of the consumer pie. So if you and I spend 100 rupees from our pocket to buy a product, the farmer gets only 30 rupees out of that. Whereas the farmer is essentially taking the bulk of the risk and perhaps doing most of the heavy lifting. Of course, everybody else in the value chain, supply chain already obviously also has a role to play, but 30% is too little. And except for the dairy sector in India, where the farmer gets 70-75% of the consumer pie, for most other products, without exception, this share is only 30%. So that is one side of the story. The other side of the story is there is an opportunity where consumers are increasingly looking for options, looking for products which come with a certain differentiation. As Yogesh ji was also mentioning in the previous session, कि आपने आटा बेच दिया तो आटा is the same, या आपने दाल as a dal बेची तो it's fine. But if you have a product which is better in taste, better in quality, for example, if it's a dal, does it cook better? Does it taste better? Or if it's a certain spice, is it more flavorful? Is it better? Is it coming from a single origin, a specific place of origin, etc.? So there is this opportunity, and the consumer is also becoming more and more discerning, much more aware of health, nutrition, and other aspects. So if you look at these two pointers, which is one, the farmer not being able to make a good share of the consumer pie, and on the other hand, consumers looking for products which mainstream consumer FMCG brands, whether Indian or multinational, are not serving. And if you put the two together, there is an opportunity to leverage the power of the network, as they say. Farmer groups, with the assistance of government, a lot of infrastructure has come up, processing infrastructure. The institutional governance side of it was already there since the last 10 to 12 years with the entire FPC movement, as we saw in the previous panel. So if you leverage the infrastructure which is there on ground, if you're able to build some kind of a mechanism to add value to the product, so that the farmer then does not go to the nearest mandi and panic sell during the season, but is able to retain the produce, add value to the produce, and as a result of the entire effort is able to get a larger share of the consumer pie. So that is somewhere where a lot of action is going to happen. Globally, it has happened in many economies, in many value chains. In India, it has just stopped short of maybe aggregation. But beyond aggregation of produce at the FPC level, how do you get into value addition, branding, packaging, etc., and going down to the last mile to the consumer so that the farmer gets a larger share of the consumer pie? So that, to my mind, is the biggest disruption and opportunity in the next decade.
Absolutely, Nitin. I think we talk a lot about doubling farmer income. I think that's one of the government stated objectives also. And I think all of us know that it can't happen by just improving productivity. It's essentially how do you make farmer participate in the value chain, and that's where managing a processing unit, managing even storage is a value addition in agriculture, because typically off-season prices are higher than the harvest prices. So completely agree with you. And with that, go to Vivek, who in fact is one of the startups who's setting a lot of on-farm storage, cold rooms, which are solar powered. So I think one fact which we keep hearing, India wastes 1/3 of its food produce, which I think is criminal in a country like India, where a lot of people go without food. So how do solutions like EcoZen cater to some of these value chains which are prone to perishability, and at the same time create interesting business models for small entrepreneurs which are on the ground? How do you positively impact the food value chain, taking from where Dinesh and Nitin said, disintermediating between the farmer and the consumer?
Right. Yeah, first of all, good afternoon and thank you for this opportunity. So we at EcoZen, so one of our product lines is a solar powered cold storage. This is essentially a 5-ton or a 2-ton kind of a container that can hold fruits, vegetables, and flowers in good quality for an extended period of time. And the whole intent has been food security. So while it started with saving, a part of the losses that we do as an economy right at the farm level, it also translated essentially to solving the problem of farmers getting better prices, farmers getting connected directly to the market and stuff like that as well. So we do have about 1,000 cold storages at this point of time across the country, approximately about 500,000 tons getting transacted every year on those systems. Now, the way we look at it is that the moment you have storage capacity, and most of our users are, a lot of our users are FPOs as well. They use it not for very long-term storages, but for short-term storages for perishables, which would otherwise die in or get perished in 3 to 4 days or 6 to 7 days. Now they can go as long as, let's say, 15 days or 30 days, and not like conventional cold storages where potatoes can be held for, let's say, 6 months. At least most of our use cases are like that. And the way it helps is, connecting to the market becomes easier, because if you are producing as a group, you are producing, let's say, 1,000 kg today, but a truckload has, let's say, 5,000 kg can be transported in a truckload, or 2,000 kg can be transported. You can wait for those 3 to 4 days to aggregate 5,000 kgs and transport all of them together. Right? So that is one way to go about it. That helps with market connect for people who intend to do market connect, and in the process be efficient about it. Right. The second part being the question on entrepreneurs, where there are people who would buy this and put it on some kind of a lease model, or a pay-per-go kind of model, where there are organizations as well as individuals who have put these systems near small mandis, where leftover produce which are not sold on that particular day. This serves as a storage place where they will pay a fees of, let's say, 25 paise per kg per day kind of fee, and that will help them maintain the right quality instead of throwing them away, because transporting it back to your own place costs money as well. So in a lot of cases it ends up in a landfill, and hence people are ready to pay good amount of money for this. So this becomes a sustainable model for these people to keep repeating. So these are some of the ways that we are trying to solve the problem. We definitely see that it's a long way to go, because when it comes to food security, it's not just one element which is an on-farm storage or an on-mandi storage. It's an entire chain that needs some interventions to make this better overall. Yeah.
Thanks, Vivek. Very, very interesting data points. 1,000 cold storage, I think it's a good start. I think we need probably in millions. Huh? Okay. With that, Shubhendu, you heard 3 entrepreneurs, very interesting interventions, sort of very interesting ideas, and of course, there's a proof of concept on the ground. So again, you, from an impact perspective, from an adoption perspective, do you see it happening on the ground? How do grassroots organizations look at it? How farmers look at it? Is there a skepticism of these newest solutions, or people are positively biased, willing to pay for it? Any assessment from the ground from your side?
Yeah, thank you, Amindraji. So basically, just taking clue from the previous session, that panel was discussing the old generation FPOs 10, 12 years before. They took a lot of time to reach a threshold level of 1 crore. And this new generation FPOs, we are seeing now many FPOs, the new generation ones, are reaching this kind of turnover within 2 to 3 years. So what has changed? Definitely there has been a lot of change in the government ecosystem, the support ecosystem, the licensing criteria. However, because of entrants like Dehat or Ecogen, now the access to market or technology, it has now become easier, in fact. So any FPO working with a local trader gets a chance to work with Dehat or any such service providers which are there. So they get an easy break. Dehat, as an organization or in other organizations who are procuring from FPCs, they have that heart. So unlike a local trader, wherein they are purely business oriented, organizations like this understand what are the ground level challenges. They work with the farmers. We also facilitate in many cases and support. Even for us, it was a big challenge earlier. There was no middle layer. Either there was the very big companies who won't listen to you, big banks won't listen to you, big technology players. So if you need any processing unit or say cold storage, you have to have a very big facility. So now with availability of small scale facilities, 2 tons, 3 tons, 5 tons. So the access to technology even has increased in many cases. However, even we need to understand the pain point of the startups also. Definitely the solutions which are there, those are good, but still they cannot go to the field and develop the model. Somebody has to invest in that. So that investment, definitely organizations like us who are working at different levels in the field for supporting the ecosystem. So we take the role of facilitators. In many cases, it succeeds. Like there are many technologies available. We face a lot of challenge also. One of the biggest challenge with the startups we see is that they love their product, whatever they have developed. They believe that it is very good and it is required for the market. Wherein, when we bring that technology or product or service to the ground, there comes lots of adoption challenges, which might be because of the technology gap or the understanding gap or the orientation gap. So I think that is a big area which needs to be worked. All the startups which are in the field, they need to understand the ground level requirement. It's not that whatever you have built is to be used in the by the ground, but whatever their requirement, if we are able to address that, then definitely the success rate would be even much better. Thank you.
Thanks, Shubhendu. And in my experience also, you typically need a bridge. It could be a local entrepreneur or a grassroots organization or an NGO who can convince farmers about the solution. It's typically an entrepreneur sitting in Bangalore going to Baramaki. People see it with a different lens. I think the challenge is the trust in the solutions. So understand your point of view. Dinesh, coming back to you, we had a whole session on FPO just prior to this, and some very interesting insights came out from that. And it's very coincidental that the whole of this agri-tech ecosystem and FPO ecosystem almost started at the same time, right? And I, in my opinion, they're very symbiotic. The FPO challenges, problems can potentially be solved by some of these agri-tech solutions, but I think they're culturally different. There is some bit of hesitation to sort of talk to each other. Of course, there have been multiple attempts by multiple organizations in bringing FPOs and startups together with some successes, some failures. What's been Diha's experience, because you not only buy from FPOs, you also nurturing a lot of FPOs yourself. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so Heminder, this was very interesting use case when I became part of this Diha journey. So I was having prior experience of FPOs as well, right? And working with not-for-profit for various programs as well around climate smart agriculture and all. So I was given a role of like a dual responsibility, both building project and partnership within the organization with external stakeholders, as well as to see if what we can do along with FPOs as well, right? So we were working with a lot of micro entrepreneurs at the ground level, which was our core business model and which is still our one of the major business vertical. But I was of an opinion that FPO is again a very important vertical in this entire agri value chain, and definitely we cannot go a long way without involving them as well, right? Because we have to work with small and marginal farmers, and FPO was the way out where we can actually leverage them and also help them to become self-sustainable in a way. So from less than 20 FPOs when we started off, where we were working in a couple of projects in Bihar, we have come a long way, right? So currently we are working with almost 1,000 FPOs, and across all the states we are present now. And the learning was like working with FPO is entirely different, and what previous speakers were also mentioning on. And the handholding which an FPO requires is different than the traditional agribusiness model, right? So there the farmers are very small, and typically most of these FPOs, the BODs are not an entrepreneur, right? So you have to do a lot of handholding with them, work very closely with them. They have never done business in this entire generations, right? So in a lot of the cases, so usko business samjhana ki matlab you are going to form a company, now you are going to become a director, and you are also similar like us, right? Because you are also a private limited company and we are also a private limited company, but we are coming together for a win-win situation where we are going to help you out. And what I believe that what is the difference between the earlier CBBO model and what we as a value chain organization, which probably government invited some of these private companies to become a value chain organization to create FPOs, is that technically the purpose of forming an FPO was to create entrepreneurship model and to leverage the collective farming businesses. But who is going to do that, right? So only capacity building is not going to help, as Nitin also said that market linkage is one of the important pillar. Then how to make them understand that what are the nuances of running an agri business. So where companies like us, organizations like us came into picture, we helped them out in actually understanding the nuances of the business model, how to secure licenses to do to leverage the power of collective farming and to do agri input business. On the other hand, also we help them to do the market linkage part as well. So and then finance was again another challenge, how to arrange make them available the desired credit to actually start a business. So okay, the management cost is okay to form an FPO, but if they have to grow as a business, then definitely they need some more support, both in terms of credit, both in terms of availability of inputs at their doorstep. So these were some of the things which probably we as an organization were able to bring value to them at their doorstep.
And the FPOs created by Dehat, are they free to sell to other players also, or they have to necessarily go through Dehat?
Yeah. So they, we are there only to help them to create an enterprise, and they are free to do whatever they want. But it is only that for, as a matter that we are helping them in advising them with right kind of inputs. So for example, let's say if there is an FPO and where we see that they are growing a commodity which can be leveraged by holding it for, let's say, another 10 days or 15 days time, or we tell them that okay, this commodity price will go up in another 1 month's time. So there is an advantage for them. But earlier there was no one to tell them how this is going to happen. Secondly, there was no one to tell them that what are the quality parameters which will be required when you're going to sell it to an output buyer. So they have to be dependent upon the local players for that matter. Then we are also providing them a turnaround time of, let's say, 24 hours to make the payment. Another thing which I saw working with FPOs and why they are working with organizations like us is that the surety of payment and timely payment. So this becomes a very important critical factor, as Subhendu might also be knowing that फार्मा के लिए ये बहुत important हो जाता है कि पैसा आएगा कब.
Absolutely. No, even I have seen it's not about getting higher price, it's getting payment on time. I think typically if you pay within 48 hours, you develop a good relationship with farmers. Nitin, coming to you, to me Kisan is a very unique model. हम कहते रहते हैं farm to fork, but a lot of these models are continue to be mandi to retail rather than farm to fork. And you're going directly to farmers, right? If I'm correct. So what it takes. How do you identify these farmer groups? What is your value proposition? What is that stickiness between you and them? And likewise, when you go to consumers, what are you saying which is different from, let's say, any other institutional buyer?
Sure. So it all starts from the consumer, and so it's literally fork to farm and not the other way around. So first of all, identify which are the products categories where there is a consumer pain point. So for example, हमारे consumers ने बोला कि हमें राजमा जो है रात भर भिगाना पड़ता है और कुकर में एक बार 1 घंटे के लिए 10 सीटियां लगाते हैं और उसके बाद भी वो ठीक से पकता नहीं है, गलता नहीं है. सिंपल थिंग, इट्स एन एवरीडे अफेयर इन अ किचन. तो हमने ढूंढा कि भाई सबसे अच्छा हिंदुस्तान में राजमा कहाँ से मिलता है. ये तो पता है कि बर्मा से और जगहों से इंपोर्ट होता है, बट विच इज़ द बेस्ट राजमा दैट यू कैन गेट. एंड वी फिगर्ड आउट उत्तराखंड में जो जोशी मठ है, मुंशियारी है, वहाँ का राजमा सबसे अच्छा है. उसको पूरा रात आपको भिगाना नहीं है. सुबह सिर्फ आप सो के उठे संडे को और राजमा चावल खाना है तो 2 घंटे सिर्फ भिगाना है और उसके बाद 5-6 सीटियों में आधे घंटे में तैयार है और पूरा अच्छे से गलेगा, अच्छे से पकेगा. आई एम जस्ट गिविंग अ स्मॉल एग्जांपल. सो स्टार्ट विद द कंज्यूमर पेन पॉइंट, सर्च फॉर द राइट क्लस्टर. अब चलो जोशीमठ मुंशियारी से राजमा तो लाना है, बट कहाँ से लाएंगे? सो फिगर आउट अ गुड फार्मर ग्रुप. हो सकता है किसी SRLM प्रोग्राम में या एक्सेस के किसी पार्टनर के थ्रू या टाटा ट्रस्ट के थ्रू या किसी नाबार्ड के FPO में कहीं होगा. सो बिकॉज वी बीन इन द इंडस्ट्री, वी आर वेल कनेक्टेड विद ऑल दीज पीपल एंड देर ऑल आर फ्रेंड्स. तो फिर पता चला कि भाई ये फलां फार्मर ग्रुप है जिसके पास एक बढ़िया सी ग्रेडिंग, सॉर्टिंग, पैकिंग फैसिलिटी है, वहाँ पे ये बन सकता है. Then what we do is come up with a co-branding structure. Co-branding structure essentially means जो farmer का जो brand है, जो logo है, वो भी हमारे pack पे होता है, हर consumer pack पे. And of course the umbrella logo, which is the Kisan Se brand, which is for all farmers all across the country, is also there. So that's a dual objective. One, the consumer knows where the product has come from. The provenance story is there very much on your face. You don't need a complex blockchain traceability system. It's as simple as putting the logo of the pharma group and the address behind it and a small little QR code, which if you scan, you'll get the story behind the product, etc. तो कंज्यूमर को ये फ़ायदा हो गया कि उसको पता चल गया कि चीज़ कहाँ से आई है, और जो योगेश जी भी पिछले सेशन में कह रहे थे, इट इज़ डिफरेंशिएटेड. अगर हम वही प्रोडक्ट बेचते जो सब लोग बेच रहे हैं, जो नॉर्मल ब्रांड्स बेच रहे हैं, ऑब्वियसली देयर वुड हैव बीन नो प्रोपोजिशन, हाउ वुड वी इवन कन्विंस अ कंज्यूमर टू बाई. तो ये हो गया वन साइड ऑफ द स्टोरी. द अदर बेनिफिट ऑफ दिस को ब्रांडिंग एक्सरसाइजेस, फार्मर का जो इन्वॉल्वमेंट होता है, नॉट सो मच कमर्शियली बट मोर इमोशनली एंड डिस्क्रीटली, इज सो मच मोर, क्योंकि उसको पता है उसका ब्रांड, उसका लोगो अब किचन तक जाने वाला है, और आइदर बाय डिज़ाइन और बाय डिफ़ॉल्ट ही शुड नॉट डू एनीथिंग टू कॉम्प्रोमाइज विद द प्रोडक्ट. ऑफ कोर्स देयर इज अ सिस्टम टू इंश्योर क्वालिटी, कंसिस्टेंसी, प्रोडक्ट स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन, प्रोसेस स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन, सप्लाई चेन, बट एक अनसेड एग्रीमेंट बोल लीजिए उसको, या एक बेनिफिट हो जाता है सप्लाई चेन के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से कि अच्छा प्रोडक्ट वो देगा. एंड देन वी बिल्ड अ मॉडल वेयर वी शेयर द प्रॉफिट्स. तो फॉर एवरी प्रोडक्ट, वट एवर इज द डायरेक्ट कॉस्ट, revenue minus the direct cost, whatever is the gross profit that you generate through the business, 50% is retained by Kisan se and 50% is shared with the farmer group. तो ये बड़ा ही एक comprehensive सा model है where the consumer gets the best product. The farmer is able to add value and monetize the return by way of adding value to the product. Farmers don't know how to create a brand. They don't understand packaging, food safety, compliance, labeling, branding, promotion, sales, distribution. वो हम कर रहे हैं without the farmers having to spend a single penny or a single person in terms of resources on ground. We handle the front end, the farmers handle the back end. We have some kind of a business partnership, which is a very fair and transparent way of doing things. And then at the end of the day, it's good for everybody. Sabka saath, sabka vikas.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. But yeah, 50% sharing of profit with farmers is a pretty compelling proposition, I must say. And usually it doesn't happen like that. We were coming to you. Clearly, Ecozen, one of the, I would say, torch bearers in this cold room space, and you're the first few of the block, and of course there are many who have come up now. I think one challenge with a lot of these micro-processing, micro-storage units is financing, right? Typical cost being 8, 10, 15 lakhs, right, in that range. Not just cold rooms, let's say dehydrators or some sorting, packing kind of stuff. Of course, a huge benefit to farmers. But how do are banks receptive to finance? Because it's not working capital finance, capex finance in some ways. A lot of repayment depend on the utilization. How do you ensure utilization is good enough for any entrepreneur to pay back that loan? And do you play a role in financing at all? Of course, you mentioned pay-per-use, etc., things that you are doing. But if you can throw some light on this.
Absolutely. This is one of the biggest challenges that we have faced also as an organization as well to scale this model up, right? So typically these new innovations, things like solar power, things like putting something in a decentralized manner when you are miniaturizing something becomes expensive by default, and it comes with challenges of financing. We definitely have struggled on that front. There are some good things that we have done on that front with the help of the ecosystem itself. As far as banks go, they have definitely been receptive with respect to financing. However, it's a uphill battle for a new kind of a product, is what we have seen. Unless and until your product is known in the market, it's not bankable. It's very, very tough, right? Second, as an organization, if you want to make it bankable, we have worked with a couple of banks like RBL and all to make it bankable. But then it comes with some baggages like FLDG and stuff like that, right? So there has to be some innovative financial models in the meantime, at least till the time that happens, right? Because banks will definitely have their own challenges, and that's where maybe some rural financing companies come into picture. We in fact have worked with some companies where regular case study, and one of the most interesting ones that we experience on a yearly basis is that farmers in Mahabaleshwar in Maharashtra cultivate strawberries every season. It's not more than 3-month kind of a season over there, and they don't really grow very high value crop apart from that during the year. So they're always very interested in getting our cold storage for those 3 months. The way we make that model work is that we work with a financing partner who has bought our cold storage. They have financed that. However, we operate the cold storages, and for those 3 months, we'll set it up in the farm of that farmer, strawberry farmer. There are at least 10, 12 such farmers who would use it on a daily basis in that area. And the moment that gets over, then we'll shift it to another place, let's say Bihar, because the lychee season starts right away after that. So, but it, of course, is it's more challenging compared to just getting financing right away. The second bit is also that, especially in case of in our case where we use solar, new kind of energy storage technologies, it's our responsibility as well to keep cutting costs. As an ecosystem, if you look at solar as a power source, the cost has drastically reduced over time. So our product's cost has also gone down. We have innovated over time to reduce the cost significantly. When we had launched in 2016, whatever we used to make the product at, we are now making the same at less than 50%, right? So those things are out there. Then government starts playing a major role over there, where there are some scattered opportunities that organizations like us start to leverage. Like, so MIDH has some kind of scheme, the Ministry of Horticulture, the Ministry of New and Renewable Energies have some kind of scheme bringing them together on the same page, and ensuring that maybe some of the state nodal agencies are utilizing those benefits from the central government to finance some of the farmers. So, for example, FPOs in Odisha would probably get this at 30% of the cost. FPOs in Telangana maybe only at 25% of the cost. So those things have helped in the process. This has worked wonderfully well in case of our irrigation business, where government has a big scheme out of it, because they know that it will take the time for the ecosystem to develop. So when we started back in around 2012 or so in the irrigation space, now it's 2024. It ran very slow for the first 5 years. It got ramped up very, very fast. The government will definitely keep running the program as we speak for the next few years. But we also see that because of this, the cost of the systems have come down at such levels that now farmers have started affording them directly without waiting for subsidies. And something that used to cost like 7-8 lakh rupees, now it has 1.5 lakh rupees. And if similar kind of things are done by the government, that also will definitely create a difference. So yeah, definitely a long drawn battle to create difference in there.
No, that's great news. The cost of technology, reducing by 30-40% and becoming more and more affordable is definitely great news. Shubhendu, a couple of questions for you. We talked about the capacity building of FPOs, or the set program around that. But I think another important bridge in this whole ecosystem is these local entrepreneurs, rural youth especially, who sort of engage with startups and become their brand ambassador of sorts. And of course, they earn in return, 5,000, 10,000 rupees a month. And a very important link. How do we develop capacity building at that level? This is a very open question. Of course, Syngenta Foundation did it, AEGF, Tata Trust. But we sort of need a public platform of sorts where, let's say, if Dinesh is going, Nitin is going, or Vivek is going on a particular geography and wants, let's say, 50 entrepreneurs to work with them. They have to go train, figure out, some work, some doesn't work. Is there a potential to create a platform like that where, I don't know, in today's session, Chawla sir talked about 7 lakh entrepreneurs, which actually I was not aware of, one every village, which is great. I don't know whether startups can use it or not, but do you see potential for that? So that's one very specific question. One broader question, I see a lot of developmental organizations sort of interacting with startups, but each of them have a sort of their own strategy to engage. Even multilats and foundations have their own lenses. Is there a way to converge these efforts so that these programs become more effective?
Yeah. So on the network, I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
In fact, everybody is working in a different way to prepare their own network. Development organizations like us, we also play actually a very big role, which is many times unnoticed, wherein we work with the local community, identify the young people who actually has some business sense of the business acumen. In the initial period, wherever we work, also we create such cadre of people later on who also develop their own businesses. In many cases, many of the state governments we work with, there are also schemes which support such enterprises, particularly in agri micro entrepreneurs. So there are a lot of support system available, and if something can be done in this line, wherein startups they need some professionals or they need some people in the ground for which they need to search people. Currently, actually, we organizations like us, we do most of that work in terms of facilitating the startups. So we are in continuous touch with different level of startups, whether it is Nitin or whether it is Vivek or whether it is from Dr. Dinesh's company. So we play that role, and many cases we are highly successful in that, though there are challenges in lots of cases. But it's a great suggestion, and in fact, if some efforts can be taken in that way, and the question comes, who will do that? So that definitely it's way park, but that's even a business opportunity.
Yeah, I think there's a missing link, and it's.
Yes,
I am not
yes.
saying it need to be donor funded. There's a way one can fund it in a more commercial way. But yeah, we leave it for another discussion. We are around 9 minutes left, so I think maybe we can open it up for the audience. Please feel free to ask question. Maybe we can sort of get some questions, and then we can throw it up for the panel. Any questions from the audience? Okay.
Maybe by the time when people are thinking for the question to ask. So coming back to just previous question where you were asking, I was also listening in the morning when Chaurasa was mentioning about like 7 lakh youth in every village. I have tried this. We have been doing this at village level. We are trying to create, apart from micro entrepreneurs, another set of youths who can actually become part of this value chain system. There have been some successes in doing that, but still we are trying to figure out a more robust model of incentivizing those people on the ground. And there are other challenges like how to track whether this local village level youth was actually responsible to have that transaction happened or not, and how we can take the advantage of you guys can also think of like how we can take the leverage of technology plus educating these youth, how they can leverage, and how we can have, there is still a gap between the last mile connectivity and us or other players. So how we can use technology to bridge that gap by using these local youths. So still, yes, definitely there is a opportunity lying over there. And there may be innovative things which a lot of other people who are there sitting out thinking startups, they can come up with this kind of innovation. But yes, there is a lot of room to do that and exploit that potential. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to add?
Yeah, I did have some comments on, although on a very small scale level so far, because we have about 1.5 lakh devices on the ground, including irrigation systems and cold storage. What we have seen is a new crop of at least entrepreneurs who have come up for services and maintenance of whenever there are newer things on the field, there are people required to ensure that they are functioning well. And there are companies, although we have been doing it ourselves for our own farmers, there are companies who have hired youth from the local areas to ensure that all these products are running perfectly. There are cases where the government comes up with 5 years of AMC program, and let's say in a cold storage, the cleaning of solar panels is extremely important. The companies who are, the dealers who are actually providing it are also providing that service, that every couple of months will definitely come up, clean, maintain, and all those kind of. So let's say an urban clap for appliances in rural areas is definitely something that we would see coming up as we go forward, as the rural India becomes more and more advanced, more machineries are getting used. So yeah, just a couple of cents on that front.
So this is the effort that you have put in building your after sales network in some
Yeah,
way, right?
some of our effort, but however, in the process, several companies have emerged as well. So in fact, we have been outsourcing some of our efforts there, and the people employed are actually folks from those rural areas who are doing all this, getting trained. The 10-day training can just help them do basic maintenance of the systems. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know if we don't have a question. Maybe one more question for Nitin. Okay, are there any questions? Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello. I just want to know if companies like Dehat or Ecozone, if not today, means if it is possible to share what is the percentage of revenue they are expecting or they are having from FPOs today out of the overall rural business, or in a span of 5 years or 10 years down the line, what is the potential they see with the farm sector, these FPOs, or as a distributor, dealer, or mitigating these service related issues? To what extent they see the revenue they can generate out of the rural revenue they are expecting, what percentage they are expecting from FPOs?
Yeah, so this question is very relevant, and I would say that the potential is immense. And if any agri-tech company wants to leverage that, this can change the entire scenario of that organization. Definitely, yes. And this model is really workable. It is achievable and it is doable. And I have done it and I've seen the results on ground. But the journey is not very smooth, and the transition takes time. So you have to work a lot. You have to handhold them. As on date, there are very few, or if you talk about total number of FPOs and if you talk about percentage of successful FPOs in those, right? So the number may be very less, but that still shows that there is a possibility, and this can change the entire way we see how farmers are. On an average, to be on the safer side, any FPO, if doing a good transaction, can range easily somewhere around 4 crores to 10 crores very easily. And you can calculate the revenue if you are working, let's say, with 1,000 FPOs, or let's say, for that matter, even 300 FPOs. If any small startup is working, what kind of potential it has got. And you can compare the revenue with any regular company, that what kind of revenues you can generate and what kind of margin can be there, and how the farmers can be benefited out of it. So safely 5 crore to 10 crore you can take if any FPO is performing well, and if they have got good trained CEOs and intelligent board of directors, and it is all like hand holding. Shubhendu can add, we have done a lot of businesses collectively also and various places, and we have seen the result on ground as well. Yeah.
So you're saying 5 to 10 crores per FPO is what you can, okay. So that's it.
It is in a horizon of, let's say, 2 years, 2 to 3 years, easily you can do that.
So in fact, that business potential is there,
Right.
and it's actually, if we plan in a nice manner and if the FPO is participating, that is a very easy business. And out of that, one company may not get all. So there are input, there are output. So 1 to 2 crore business with one company is feasible. And if such company has 100 working FPCs, then you can imagine the kind of business.
Vivek, let me ask you, how out of these 1,000 cold rooms that you have sold today so far, how many of them come from FPOs?
At least 25%.
25%.
And this has been one of the best product market fits for us in that sense, because if you look at a part of these 1,000 has definitely been funded by the government, right? The moment it is funded by the government, there will be cases where people may not be using it very actively because they got it virtually for free. However, in case of FPOs, at least the FPOs which are active and not sleeping, like in the previous session people was talking about, people who are active are one of the best users of our cold storage and one of the best flag bearers with respect to technological change, new innovation, new features that we are constantly trying to bring up in the cold storage. Another thing is that if you look at the FPOs, the way they are operating, it makes sense for us in that sense, because it's not just production, it also is processing. One of the newest product lines that we have along with some of our partners is offering solar milling solutions, where atta is processed, or dal is processed, and oil is processed, the same facility pretty much. And that's where we are putting our motor controls, our solar expertise in picture. And I definitely see that going forward, although we might have put only 10 of them so far, but then definitely see that FPOs can be one of the most important off-takers of that kind of product as well. So
that's great. I think we are out of time, but anything you want to say for Kisan se, what kind of revenue do you expect coming from FPOs? What?
100%.
100%. Wow. So I think that's great. Aline, very quickly.
Yeah. So thanks. I know time is running out. So first of all, I think congratulations, Nitin, for this launch of Plate to Fork. So one question to you is that you are procuring a certain high quality produce and bringing it to the fork. How do you see the price differential? Is there any premium in that? And if there is a large amount of premium, do you think it's going to be sustainable in the long term, or it will go in the organic way where the market is not growing? Sorry, just another question to Vivek, just adding that, your EcoZen solutions of cold storage, and I think you gave a Mahabaleshwar example of shifting the unit to Bihar or somewhere else. Is that the main model you have? Because I think it's a very nice model to have, because if combines can move from Punjab to MP and going, providing this kind of a services, this could be a game changer solutions for small ticket items. So any thoughts on these two questions? Thanks, Evindra.
So versus a Rajma which does not cook well, which takes overnight to soak, which is not as great in terms of the cooking, tasting experience, ours is significantly better and 25% more to the consumer. So consumers can choose between the two. Mm-hmm. And that's the story pretty much, if it's so most of the spices, for example, are normally blended spices. So obviously a single origin spice, which is much more flavorful, much more nutritious, much more tasty, will not obviously sell at the same price as the lowest common denominator. So the premium is between 20, 25, 30% for most of products.
Yeah, the cold storages which are moving all the time would be 10% of our portfolio right now. We definitely see this as a very interesting model. It requires cash to definitely scale it up, and initial ROIs may not be great because you need to keep moving, and people may not be ready to pay for the transportation cost, because Maharashtra to Bihar is a lot of cost, at least ₹1 lakh to transport this. So making it sustainable is one thing that we, as the density increases, definitely it can be done in a better manner. We definitely want to bet on this in India at least. Yeah. So we are now operating outside the country as well, where in Africa people are using it in a similar manner. However, it makes much more sense over there because of how defragmented some of the pockets of agriculture over there are. In India, still experimenting and learning better to scale it up further.
Thanks, Vivek. So I think we are completely out of time. So we have to stop here. But thanks to all of you for some very interactive discussion towards the end. And thanks to all the panelists, Dinesh, Nitin, Vivek, Shubhendu, for some very insightful discussion and lovely insights. Thanks to Access for this lovely opportunity. And maybe we can carry on the discussion during the tea break. Thank you very much.
Our thanks to the esteemed moderator and the panelists of this session. May I request you all to please join us front and center for a group photo op. And as you descend the stage, please do take a small token. Please join us front and center.